Welcome back to Game Time. Chris Paul no longer a New Orleans Hornet. I know all of you Hornet fans are sad about that, but this was his resume with your fine team, and this guy is going to the Hall of Fame in addition to the Los Angeles Clippers. With the Hornets, he put up 18.7 PPG, almost 10 assists a game, and almost 2.5 steals a game. He won 3 steals titles, 2 dime titles, won Rookie of the Year back in 2006. He made 4 All-Star teams, and 3 times he was all defense. David Aldridge, Greg Anthony, Mike Fratello, Rick Kamlo. Let's show you now our projected starting 5 for the New Orleans Hornets as the dust settles on this trade. Chris Paul going to the Clippers, and we've already told you who goes to the Hornets, but here's how it works. Eric Gordon slots right in there as their 2 guard of the future. Jarrett Jack goes from backing up Paul to now starting at point guard for the Hornets. Trevor Ariza was their 3, still is. Emeka Okafor was their 5, now figures to slide down to the 4. Chris Kaman now will be the starting center for the New Orleans Hornets. And Aminu will back up Ariza at the 3. Bellinelli, his option was picked up. He will come back, and he will back up Eric Gordon. They also have Pondexter, and Carl Landry is dangling out there as a free agent that they may bring back to continue to bolster their front court. Right now, we're going to hear from Chris Kaman and Eric Gordon on the trade that sent them from the Clippers to the Hornets.
Well, I was a little shocked. I didn't anticipate it because I had talked to the people yesterday, and they said that deal was done, the original deal with Bledsoe, myself, and Farouk. And then it must have changed a little bit, between now and then, and it went through. I mean, with a player like Chris Paul, I understand their angle, and I think it's going to make their team even more successful.
Well, it's tough. They have a good point guard coming here, but it's kind of tough to. It is kind of tough to swallow, but, I'm just a basketball player, and I'm just going to move on. I'm not going to have any hard feelings about it.
Well, based on that sound, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen watching at home, it seems like Eric Gordon taking it a little bit harder than Chris Kaman. Chris Kaman appeared to be very accepting of it, as if he'd been sort of planning on it. Eric Gordon, coach, maybe not so much. So let us know, about his mindset and how well you think he will fit in and how well you think he will do with his new team there in New Orleans.
I don't know if people take the time to stop and think just how disruptive a trade really is, because you're talking about, uprooting your family. You're going into an area that you're not used to. You become very comfortable with the franchise and the community and the team that you're in. You're using the bank. You're going to the post office. You know where everything is. Now you have to uproot, do all that, bring your clothes. And by the way, you're in the middle of training camp, and you're trying to go into this condensed season of 66 games and play well. So it's hard, and I agree. I think I saw hurt on his face right there, and it's he has great pride. He's a great competitor. I really like him as a player. He was so important to Team USA with Coach Krzyzewski in the World Championships. He just got better and better, and I think he was looking at it. Look, I'm in L.A. here with a chance, along with Blake Griffin, DeAndre, to really make something happen here, and now he has to go and start over again in New Orleans.
You make a great point, too. And the other thing, when you do get traded, oftentimes, we're talking about men. So you may have a family.
Sure.
Your wife, your kids, they can't leave. They're in school.
Yeah.
So you could be basically, away from them for the entire season, no less. Secondly, his situation to me is a lot like Lamar Odom's. And that this is a guy who, when you look at that roster, he was one of the cornerstones. He's a guy you would think was going to be there. He's very productive for them, a real good citizen, good character guy.
Yeah.
Everything you'd want in terms of building your team for the future. So in his mind also, it's like, wow, he had to think he was going to be a part of it. Remember also, a lot of the talk about the trade, whenever his name came up, that would cancel the deal.
Right. Yeah.
Because he was, in essence, one of their untouchables. So then to have it come to fruition where you're gone, man, that's got to be really difficult for him.
And, D.A., I want to talk to you about that. It seemed like it was boiling down to the Clippers either giving them Gordon or the pick. Well, they ended up giving both. So I want you to talk to that and how it came to be both and how we got to this trade. And then also, do you think Chris Kaman will be a New Orleans Hornet after the trade deadline?
Second part, no. I think they'll flip him. He's a very valuable guy. Look, this guy's an all-star 2 years ago, a year ago.
Yep.
A double-double guy. There's not too many teams in the league that have centers that average a double-double. So I think Chris Kaman is going to have high trade value for the Hornets. And looking forward, they probably should trade him because this is probably his highest trade value at age 29. So I would think that they would definitely move him for picks, young players coming back. As far as the Gordon or the pick, you know, the Hornets were asking for a lot of different things. In some scenarios, they wanted both of the first-round picks that the Clippers had, their own in Minnesota's. In some scenarios, they wanted Bledsoe and one of the picks, or Bledsoe and both of the picks. So what they wound up doing was coming up with a compromise. So they gave them Gordon and the better of those two picks. But the important thing for the Clippers is that they do have a pick in next year's draft, which is going to be a very deep draft and a good draft. But the important thing for the Hornets is that they get the better pick, whichever that is. And so you take that combined with their own pick, they may have 2 lottery picks in a very good draft. They should have an opportunity to really change the culture of their franchise going forward, depending on who they pick.
And, Coach, I want you to talk to the dynamic at the 4 and 5 in New Orleans. Kaman slotting in at the 5, Okafor slotting to the 4. That may be a temporary situation. If they trade Kaman, then Okafor probably goes back to his more natural 5. But do you think that can work at least for the interim, at least for the beginning of the season, with Kaman at the 5 and Okafor at the 4 in New Orleans?
Most definitely, because Okafor, by nature, likes to drift away from the basket, turn and face up, and he can make that mid-range jump shot. Whereas Kaman has, one of the best, set of feet down there as far as footwork, ability to score back to the basket. That's not Okafor's game. But that is Kaman's game. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of teams that would like to have a center you can throw the ball to in the post. He can get you scores.
Let's talk about Jarrett Jack. New Orleans Hornets fans, they know him. They saw him last year backing up Chris Paul. Now he's the starter. Obviously, it's a downgrade going from Paul to Jack. But is it, talk to me about how much of a downgrade it is.
Jarrett Jack is a very good basketball player. Mm-hmm. And the advantage you have with him, listen, you're not going to replace Chris Paul. Right. But the advantage you have with Jarrett Jack is this is a young man that's been on really good teams, understands how to play winning basketball, makes good decisions out on the floor. Plus, he's versatile. He's 6'5". He can play some off guard for you at times. Heck, you can even go small and throw him at the 3. So it gives you some flexibility with the roster. Plus, you have a guy that knows the system. With all of this turnover and all that's going on with the distraction of the Chris Paul trade, it's going to be nice for Monty Williams to at least have somebody that understands his system and will help him implement it moving forward, because it's going to be a difficult challenge for New Orleans for the rest of the season. Let's face it, Chris Paul was a staple in that community as well. So to have him gone, you're going to need stability in that backcourt.
Yeah, we're happy for Jack right now. Obviously, he's been a bench player a lot, but he thinks he's a starter. He's been a starter at times, and he's flourished in that role.
Boy.
Now talk about Carl Landry, a free agent for the Hornets. Is it likely that he comes back, or may he be on the move?
Look, he's going to decide tomorrow, is what I was told. He's got a lot of suitors. Portland's been after him for a while. And whether Portland signs him or not may be dependent on whether Portland gets Jamal Crawford or not. Jamal Crawford is down to Portland and Sacramento. Those are the 2 teams that he's going to choose from. He's eliminated the Knicks as a possibility. And obviously the Knicks couldn't offer him as much money. But he also is from Seattle. Is very, obviously lives in Seattle, so Portland has a lot of draw to him. And Sacramento's offering him the most money, so it's understandable. But Landry's going to decide tomorrow. He's got a lot of different places he can go. Willie Green's a free agent as well, one of their players down there. So it wouldn't shock me if they bring 1 or 2 of their guys back who are free agents. But Carl Landry is going to have options. He can go wherever he wants.
And if they bring Landry back, that gives them that much more leverage or options with the Kaman trade that you were talking about. Landry starts at the 4, Okafor starts at the 5. Wow, we're trading Kaman here before he's even landed in New Orleans. It's crazy. That's the NBA these days, baby. But check this out. Let's show you right now Chris Paul's last field goal with the New Orleans Hornets. It occurred on April 28th in the playoffs against the Lakers. Splash from the left wing, called a 3 for CP3. That was it, DA. Last tip in a Hornets uniform.
Yep. So long goodbye. And it's unfortunate because Chris Paul was a guy that, as Greg mentioned, was a stalwart member of that community. Loved the community of New Orleans. Loved being out there with people, and they loved him back. I mean, he really did love being in New Orleans. This wasn't a guy who didn't like the city he lived in. He liked the city he lived in. He just wanted to be on a team that had a chance to win a championship or contend, and that was not going to be the Hornets anytime soon.